So let's take a look at rendering. Minimize that and go into our render view. Just click render with what we've got so far, and that will render the scene just with a headlight, so light kind of coming from the camera. Let's make a ground. So I'll just, on the object level, we can make a grid here. That's just basically a geometry with a grid on the inside there, and just make that, you know, much bigger. We can do it here on object level as well. Okay, just back there. You know, we won't see that with, we're going to be adding a fog later. So I'll call this ground. Okay. Let's take some snapshots. It's nice to be able to see the comparison. So I'm going to drop, let me stop this, and I'm going to drop a light. And this will be a, yeah, we'll leave it as a point light, but turn on spotlight. Maybe we can visualize that in the viewport here. Again, make sure this is turned off, and then I'll just leave this. And then let's start to look at the transforms for this. So if we push it up, hopefully we'll see it take effect. Not yet. So it needs to be pointing down. There we go. So that's the kind of thing I want. You know, I want the focus to be on that center house. Let's move it up super high and then make it quite a bit brighter. So if we, there we go, something like that. Maybe just a bit more. Let's render that. There we go, that's pretty cool. I'm going to come in here and play around with this cone angle and delta. So that's, you know, basically how big the spotlight is. So I'm going to bring this way down to 2, this to 15. All right, and then roll off. So that's kind of the blur on the edge to 5. Okay. Let me just move it forward a little bit so we get light at the front there. There we go. So we're just catching the front of it a little bit there. So yeah, obviously this is not going to be the only lights that we use. But that's a good start. I think maybe if we go into the out context and then go into our rendering, always turn this to physically based rendering. And limits, and then just give ourselves a diffuse bounce. There we go. So there we're getting light bouncing back up onto the front now, which has, as you can see, a big difference. Let's do one with and one without, and we'll do a snapshot of them. Turn the progressive render off. Rendering really quickly now, but you'll see later that it won't be once we add some volumes into this and start to get rid of this noise. We'll do that, and we get loads more light. And you can see that's taking much longer to render now as well, because of that bounce light, but it's necessary. You know, it looks much better. You could try and fake it and just have another light shining up this way, but I'm not going to. Cool. Yeah, we'll leave it there for now, and then next we'll look at well, actually, let me just do one more thing. Let's go to a later frame and get our motion blur working, because that's kind of quick and easy. So if we go here into the render and turn on, go into sampling, velocity blur, and then go to your out context, not to show, back to your out context, and allow motion blur, and that will use the velocity from the simulation. So we should have that. Yeah, you can see the change there. It's quite subtle, but you see we're getting a bit of blur there now. So let's let that render out. Cool. So grab that. So that's kind of looking nice as it is already, but we've got a few more steps to go until it's finished.